Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone is having a fantastic morning thus far. Just finishing setting up this live stream, taking a look at what's going on in the world. Doesn't seem like overly too much in XRP land, but we do have some important economic data to talk about, which I believe is going to be significant in creating that next bull market a lot of us have been waiting for. So we'll jump into that later. Appreciate everyone who's showing up this morning. Make sure you're getting here early. You drop that like. Ed, good to see you, brother. Always love to see you in the chat. Yes, we are going to start. I need to start scheduling the live streams for a certain time, but I'm still trying to figure out exactly how it fits perfectly into my schedule. So once we have that all figured out, we'll be able to get consistent with specific times on live streams. But good to see everyone. Josh, good to see you. Ed, Lunatics, TS. So the big discussion right now in XRP land is definitely still hooks. It seems to me like some clarity by David Schwartz in terms of why he pivoted on his stance for hooks has been helping people a lot kind of wrap their head around thinking there. It seems like a lot of the initial controversy has kind of gone around that, and now it just seems like, hey, is the best strategy to have something like hooks, or is that too much of a risk to the network? So that seems to be the big discussion right now, still all over X in terms of what people are talking about most. I still do think hooks would be something that would be good for the network, but it needs to be implemented properly. And until David Schwartz is convinced that hooks is going to be safe for the network and something that's going to be beneficial, then until then I'm probably in agreement in David Schwartz's way of thinking of things, which is just wait and make sure these things are not going to be detrimental to the network. Sneaky Ollie says, I've seen a lot of people leaving crypto lately, which makes me bullish. Not sure if I'm crazy or genius. No, that's the way to do it. I mean, when you're talking, the technology is not going to go away. So unless you think, unless you're under the theory that the technology is going to go away, then the best time to be getting involved is when people are uncertain and people are scared. So it's been like that for a while, to be honest. I would expect to be on the back end of kind of the capitulative stage, but I definitely don't think that's a bad way of thinking. Roger, good to see you this morning. Good morning to you. Ryan is hooks. What's that? Ryan, hooks are smart contracts on the XRP Ledger network. So the ability to program a specific XRP transaction and really giving anyone the ability to put that programmability in. So the debate is on whether or not that programmability could be detrimental to the main chain itself. That's what they're trying to figure out. I think the general consensus is if you can implement hooks in a way that doesn't cause any kind of issues on the network, then, well, that's kind of a no-brainer, right? But I think there are outstanding thoughts that it could have some kind of negative implication on the network. So it's all just about making sure that we're safe, conservative, and we're really taking things slowly when it comes to building out the network. Oh, I forgot. We do have a lot of things to talk about in terms of that notice that the SEC got. In terms of, I mean, in terms of that filing, the Ripple filed in regards to them wanting to wait prior to paying their fine. So that's definitely going to be something interesting we'll have to jump into, because there was a lot of speculation on what that meant in terms of an appeal. So a lot of people are saying, oh, this increases or decreases the chance of an appeal. So would love to talk about that. I quickly want to cover the AMMs though, because we are seeing some pretty nice growth in the automated market maker. So I want to highlight that quickly. Well, yeah, so take a look at this. This is the automated market maker, and we are getting some very, very consistently nice growth in this thing. This is very nice to see. I think we're up to close to 13 million XRP locked in. And this is kind of in the middle of what has been a pretty boring last couple of months for the cryptocurrency industry. Most of the crypto industry, I would say, is still kind of in that bear market. Bitcoin is obviously, because of the ETFs, kind of had a head start, but most of it's still in this kind of trend. Non-farm payrolls coming out in 3 minutes. That's awesome, Deaton. I appreciate that. We will get that queued up. Is that, if that's at 8:15, we will get that queued up in a second. I believe the news source I have should cover that. Yeah, so automated market makers looks like they're filling up nice. It's great to see this in the midst of a bear market, seeing XRP continue to lock up. And this is also without the ability to put RLUSD in these automated market makers. What I am hearing is RLUSD will be here sooner than anticipated. So that's good news. Let's see. We're expecting that data in the next couple minutes here. So we'll try to make sure we get that real time here. And 8:30 is jobless claims. All right, awesome. All right, we'll tune into the news real quick.
Nobody covers Jackson Hole like Bloomberg. Context changes everything.
Jumpstart your trading day with...
Yeah, so still on the ads here. So hold up. Yeah, so let's see. I'm assuming they're going to jump right into it now. Let's see.
Jobless claims, then it's the big one tomorrow morning, 8:30 Eastern time. The payrolls report, we are looking for a number of 165, the median estimate in our survey. Your scores going into this data, negative on the S&P by almost 0.1%. On the Nasdaq 100, softer by 1/3, adding to the losses of the last couple of days, kicking off September in the wrong way, that's for sure, for the equity market bulls. Switch at the board and turn the page, and we'll turn to the bond market as we get a downside surprise on the ADP report. Yields are dropping to 373 on a 2-year. Mike McKee, the wrong kind of downside surprise on this number.
The wrong kind of downside surprise, unless you are betting that the Fed is going to be cutting 50 basis points, because you've got 99,000 jobs, according to ADP, created in the private sector during the month of August. That is far lower than the 145 anticipated. Remember, we got 145,000 total jobs, 114,000 total jobs in August from the government, and the expectation has been that that would jump up, but it has not jumped up, at least not in the ADP numbers. Now, ADP has revised down their July numbers to 111,000 from 122,000. So definitely a disappointing number. And given the fact that we have seen markets react to much less jobs data, lesser jobs data this week, I would imagine this is going to scare some folks.
So equity futures just a little bit softer, not too much drama actually, Mike. We're looking at futures down by a little more than 0.1% on the S&P. Yields were a bit higher early this morning, now they're lower. If you switch at the board and go to the 2-year, the 10-year, the 30-year, we can just take a sneak peek of things to the front end of the curve. We're down a basis point or two now to 373.73. In foreign exchange, dollar yen around 143.13. But Mike, there are some people out there wondering whether ADP is a better signal of where this economy's at compared to payrolls, which got revised so heavily a few weeks back.
Well, remember that ADP is revised a lot too. We just don't pay attention to it. I just mentioned.
All right, so that's interesting. It looks like job numbers came in weaker than initially anticipated. Now, the funny thing about this is like whether or not that's good or bad for markets. So that's kind of the funny question here, because bad job numbers is obviously bad in terms of the federal, in terms of like unemployment, and in terms of bad revenue coming in from companies, and just a deteriorating economy. But when it comes down to the chance of the Federal Reserve going to cut rates, it actually increases the chance the Federal Reserve is going to cut rates, which the markets generally are looking at as bullish. So it is kind of a funny mix here. It does seem like we're kind of moving more into that zone of recession fears, but it doesn't seem like we're necessarily there yet. So we'll have to take a look at these second numbers coming out later. Deaton said the jobless claims are at jobless claims are at 8:30. So we'll tune back in for that. These two things in combination with each other should give us a pretty good idea of where we're going to stand.
Higher now than say 10 years ago or 6 years ago, given how much bigger the economy is?
Well, you make a valid point about the size of the economy. We've gone back and forth about what the level of job creation needed to absorb new entrants to the labor force is. The Fed's looked at somewhere around 100,000 or above, but that's not a number that Wall Street's going to find acceptable. And it becomes a matter of not what the level is, but the speed at which it has decelerated that would scare the Fed. If we got 100,000 this week, Fed would say, that's not a terrible report on a statistical basis. But because it happened so fast that we fell off, that suggests the economy is slowing faster than we thought, and we need to do more.
I don't know how many market participants would come out and say that's not a bad report based on a statistical basis if we got 100K tomorrow morning.
Well, if you put a bunch of economists in a room, they would tell you that, because they're...
No, I have no doubt economists would say that.
We're nerdy people who...
Hold on a second. And I just have to respond to that. There are some people who say that it actually should be closer to 300,000 of jobs created. And that actually it was normal what we saw before, just based on how much bigger the economy is. So we don't have a sense of what's tight and what's not. I think that's compelling.
If you go into a room of economists, you just walk out confused. Mike, thank you. Appreciate it.
I'm glad I was able to help.
99,000 is the number on ADP. The estimate was 145. Equities negative by 0.2. We're down 0.5 on the NASDAQ 100. I talked about that bid into the bond market. The 2 years down by 3 basis points now. The dollar is weaker. The yen's much stronger now, 143. We're on the brink of break.
Yeah, you heard them say the dollar's weaker, and we'll take a look at that real quick here, because the dollar is significantly weaker than it was prior to going into that report. And this is kind of the funny thing I was just mentioning in terms of, like, are the numbers good? Are the numbers bad? Because to a certain degree, like, the numbers are good for some things and bad for others. These numbers are definitely making the dollar take a hit. And this is all part of our core thesis, that the dollar will come down and flow back into the cryptocurrency market. So as you can see, in terms of what's good and what's bad, it's a little bit of a fluid situation here. The dollar is selling off on this news. Now, I believe this sell-off is a little bit more of something on the closer time frames. If we zoom out, I have a feeling this sell-off is going to be a little harder to see. But nonetheless, it's moving in the right direction in terms of where the dollar is going to end up after all of this. And it looks like, there we go. Yep. So here's a more zoomed out chart of the dollar. As you can see, we're kind of making a move back down here to the bottom of this range where we've kind of found support for a while. And I think we're really just trying to break through this. Hopefully the Fed cuts in September will be that thing to break through. I don't see why it wouldn't be. What we got today was a clear indication that the market is looking at interest rates as something that's going to cause the dollar to sell down. So there we go. Dollar's reacting accordingly. And now it's really just seeing how cryptocurrency investments and a lot of other things are going to be reacting to this news as well. Right now, it doesn't seem like the initial move on the crypto side is overly convincing one way or the other, or the equity side. We got some things up, some things down. It looks like Bitcoin's down right now. So it looks like there's more fear right now around what will happen to the market in general. But overall, I'm still convinced interest rate cuts are going to be good for the underlying economy and kind of everything else. Guys, make sure if you're here right now, you drop a like on the stream and share the stream. Both these things are super, super helpful in getting more people to come in here, learn about the markets, learn about things like XRP. So appreciate all of you there. Let me take a look at right now in the chat. I see a couple questions there. DXY dropping. Yes, the DXY is dropping, definitely. Tomorrow, payroll data. That's a big one. Yeah, for sure. What's the other data today? Jobless claims at 8:30. All right, we'll tune back into that. 6 months ago, bad was good for crypto, but now bad is but now bad is bad for crypto. Yeah, and then tomorrow could be good as bad and bad as good. Guys, make sure if you're liking this stream, you're exiting out of the live chat to do that. That's going to be the easiest way to make sure this stream gets pushed to new people. Crypto Navigator said defense is pretty simple. When the dollar starts collapsing, crypto starts pumping. Typically, that's the relationship we've seen. Now, it's important to realize that what is really happening, in my opinion, is that a lot of dollars are being held in money market funds right now, and those dollars are strengthening, and those dollars are strengthening the dollar. And then I believe that as we get interest rate cuts, we're going to see a lot of dollars flow back out into investable vehicles like cryptocurrencies. So it's almost like you see strength of dollar when people are holding dollar, but then if people are going to sell dollar for other assets, the dollar is going to come down. So it's a little bit like the money has to go somewhere, and where is that money going to go? Linda, thank you very much for that. We get a 75 basis point rate cut. We're locking in some global liquidity for digital assets. Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be 75. I think I'm leaning more towards 25 to 50, but it is certainly possible. It is certainly possible we do get something a little more extreme. That's when it's really going to come down to the job data we're getting now. So the job data we're going to get is kind of going to be the thing that determines how aggressive the Federal Reserve needs to be. Cheers from Prague, Czech Republic. Wow, that's awesome. Awesome. I didn't know I had any viewers from the Czech Republic, so appreciate you being here. Japan will use XRP in all their banks in 2025, right? I don't know. That might have been an initial plan a long time ago. I don't know how those timelines are progressing. I think Japan's one of the best places to start using XRP, but I don't know if there's any set plan where, hey, 2025 hits, banks must use XRP. I know there is kind of a tweet that was going around from Yoshitaka Katao. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I think there's some questions about the legitimacy of that post, but Brad Garlinghouse mentioned that RLUSD will be live in weeks, not months. Yes, that absolutely is true, Roger. I wonder what the wait is on that. So are they waiting for the case to end? I think that's kind of an interesting question. Overall, I don't think they are waiting for the case to end, but I do believe it's a possibility. That's one of the things they're waiting for. I did want to bring up this real quick, and let me see how much time we have until this job numbers come out. 5 minutes. All right, so we'll wait to cover this next thing. We'll stick to the charts for a little bit. Let's take a look at Bitcoin XRP chart. XRP. Then we'll go to job data, and then we'll talk about some of the appeal talk. So, I need to pay for TradingView. I'm sick of these ads. All right, so XRP to BTC still moving up. Kind of just stuck on this candle here. Nothing overly exciting on that front. Still this large macro bottom, and we're just waiting for something to really take us. Like we have this big bottom here, this clear bounce off this bottom zone where XRP has bounced almost every single time prior. It's just waiting for this moment, right? It's waiting for that big spike to come in, that big event. I don't know what that event's going to be. It's a big question right now. Like, is the SEC not appealing? Is that going to be kind of like a signal to the market in the same way as when Judge Torres ruled that XRP is not a security? I don't know, but that is one of the things that is being watched right now in terms of, hey, when are we going to get that big event? What is that event going to be? Is it going to be random? Is there going to be a specific thing tied to it? So I think that's interesting. Legacy said like and subscribe. So appreciate that a lot. Good morning, Keith. Good to see you. Good to see you. Yeah, it's funny. This is definitely a lot more people's wake up time in comparison to before, but I don't know. I really like the ability to get on here nice and early and start talking about some of this stuff before the market opens. I like this time slot a lot more. So I'm glad most of you are adjusting to it and getting used to the new time. It's nice to be able to break these things down in the morning prior to the market being open and then digest the market day at the end of it. So appreciate you guys for getting used to it. Do you know how many other countries are on board with XRP so far? Catherine, it depends on what you mean by on board, because there's a lot of countries who are using XRP domestically, and certain companies in a country without the country necessarily being involved. And then there's also a lot of situations in which a central bank in a country is directly working with Ripple to use XRP. Mic cutting in and out. It shouldn't be, but if the mic's cutting in and out, let me know. Okay, good. Maybe it's your Wi-Fi. So yeah, so I think there's something like 30 central banks in the process of talking to Ripple, which is probably close to 30 countries. So 30 countries in the process of talking with Ripple. I think 11 are like coming out with products very soon. So that should give you an idea of kind of the buy-in from countries, central banks, and things like that. And then obviously Ripple, I think, has coverage on every single continent in terms of, except Antarctica, of some country using Ripple and XRP. So it depends if you're looking at the private company part of this, or you're looking at the public part. Yeah, Ripple has stats on that specifically. Hold on, I want to jump over. It looks like we're about to get this next piece of data, so we'll jump over there. Let's see. We're just finishing up the last couple ads here. Bam, be careful. What is Bam saying? Oh yeah, good to see you, brother. Good to see you. Thanks for stopping in. Ripple had money. Okay, here we go. Hold on.
Back of that, futures a bit softer, down 0.25% on the S&P. In the bond market, the rally continues after a pretty strong start to the month of September. Yields now down at the front end of the curve by 4 basis points at 371. To help set the tone for today, jobless claims. And mind the key, this is the right kind of downside surprise.
This is the right kind of downside surprise. Jobless claims fall 227,000 after 232,000, a revision upward of 1,000 last week. This is for the last week of August. Continuing claims at 1,838,000 after 1,860,000. So that falls as well. So overall, the jobless claims numbers are pretty good. I'm looking at the unadjusted data, and they went down. Jobless claims totaled 189,389 in the unadjusted data, which is a decrease of 3,300. So we are not seeing layoffs. And this gets back to yesterday, the Beige Book, where you saw over and over again in the Beige Book that Fed districts were reporting companies saying they were holding on to workers, but they're not filling jobs via attrition, and they're not filling jobs to expand. They're just kind of sitting with what they've got. And it looks like that's definitely the case here between ADP and jobs claims. Not letting people go, but they're not adding people either.
This market really just feels like it's so finely balanced right now, on a knife's edge. That number just dropped, and futures briefly turned positive on the S&P 500. And if you bring up the bond market at the front end of the curve, yields were a little bit higher going into ADP. ADP came out, downside surprise, bonds start to rally, yields drop by up to 4 basis points. This number drops, yields start to unwind some of that move. We're down now only 2 basis points to 373. And this is why about 30 minutes ago.
All right, so this is interesting when you take a look at some of this job data coming in. So obviously at 8:15 we got the job data that people aren't really hiring. So that led to a lot of people having the assumption that if we're not hiring, right, then people are probably getting fired, because if you're not hiring, what are you typically doing? You're typically cutting on the other end of that. And what we just found out is people aren't necessarily really cutting either. So we're kind of in a situation right now where we're like, I think the guy called it like teetering on the edge of a knife, right? It's like we're ready to kind of go either way. And it seems like the market can still be saved in one way or another. So there's two options. One, we kind of have the acceleration of the firings, and you start to have people losing their job, and you have unemployment start really rising. But as we can see based on that data, that rise in unemployment really hasn't started yet. And at the same exact time, on the other side of things, like, people aren't really hiring anymore. So we're kind of teetering on the edge of things going badly, but it hasn't gone badly yet. So the Federal Reserve still seems like they have time to pivot. Let's jump back into this real quick and see what else they're saying.
People here wondering, are we normalizing because we had such a strong labor market, or are we going down and the Fed needs to take emergency steps to stop it? Throw in two other factors. One, it's September, and so the markets are primed for bad news, and every September the market goes down, and we're seeing that. They're looking for things to get upset about. And then you have the election, and there are people who are saying, we're waiting to see what happens with the election before we make any business spending plans. So with all that together, you can imagine sitting around the table at the Fed and trying to balance all that out.
It's
and
tough.
Deciding what you're going to do.
Mike, we've said on this show, though, for months now, we've asked the following question. Are we seeing a welcome cooling or an unwelcome deterioration? And after Chairman Powell's speech, at least in the near term, I do wonder whether that's a distinction without a difference for them, because he has now come out and said, we don't welcome any cooling at all from here. So if you get any further signs of cooling, and arguably we're still seeing it, it's just setting them up for action, isn't it?
Well, it's going to be very interesting tomorrow, because we have John Williams, who's vice chairman of the Open Market Committee, and we have Chris Waller, who's sort of the intellectual center of the economists on the Board of Governors, who are both speaking. We'll get their views after the jobs number comes out. Actually, Williams is speaking as the jobs number comes out, so I hope the folks at the Council on Foreign Relations have their Bloomberg on their phone, on
one of those
when it's happening. Yeah, exactly. To ask him about it. But it's their last chance to send a signal, because the blackout starts on Saturday. So if they are worried and they don't want the markets to overreact one way or another, they'll hopefully tell us.
You nailed it. We've all got it circled. Governor Waller, 11 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow morning.
I'm laughing because I'm thinking of John Williams with two speeches, one of them with big in red. Good jobs report.
Yeah,
excellent.
of course.
Bad jobs report.
Two edits.
Two edits. And it basically, he's looking at the Bloomberg. It's like, okay, all right, which one? And that's essentially maybe how we're going to get messaged.
You just get a marker pen and start scribbling out methodical and gradual. Just take out those two words. Right?
Seriously.
Mike McKee, thank you. Appreciate it. If you've missed the last 15 minutes or so, 20 minutes, we had the wrong kind of downside surprise on ADP, 99 versus an estimate of 145K. We had the right kind of downside surprise on jobless claims. Jobless claims came in at 227. The median estimate was 230. I said earlier, if you walked into a room of economists, you'd walk back out confused. If you look at this data this morning, you're not getting clear direction either. Jay Bryson of Wells Fargo is challenged with solving some of these issues. Jay, what is going on in the labor market in America?
Well, John, I mean, I think you kind of talked about it before. I mean, what we're seeing is we're just not getting as much hiring as we had before. And I think that's consistent with the ADP number we got this morning. But we're also not seeing businesses laying people off. And that's consistent with the initial jobless claims number. So, the labor market has moved back into better balance, which is a good thing. Things are slowing down out there in the labor market. But, and I think Lisa used this word earlier, you're kind of on a knife edge right now, and you don't want things to deteriorate further from here.
Jay, what gives you confidence it won't? Is there any reason to be confident that things stabilize, that this isn't just a moment in time, it's an end state for the rest of this year?
So I think there's two things, John, that I think things kind of stabilize here. And recession is not the base case call. One would be, if you look at the financial position of households, in general, it's pretty good. Yes, we have seen delinquencies go up on credit cards and on autos.
So I will say this real quick. There is a question about the legitimacy of the numbers. And I totally understand that, because the numbers have been being revised a lot. But it's important to understand that when it comes down to the number revisions, only on certain surveys are these numbers being revised. So my understanding is that ADP actually has been pretty accurate because it's a private sector survey. I'm trying to find the chart that compares them right now. I'm having a hard time bringing it up. So if I do find that, I will bring it over. But what's important to understand is there is data being reported that is from the private sector and hasn't been subject to manipulation in terms of some of the government data we have seen. So just keep that in mind. Silver Days, great to see you, brother. Harry, it's pretty simple. They will appeal. Okay, we'll get into appeal in a minute. We're gonna jump into appeal probably in the next 15 minutes here. I just want to finish going over some of this economic data first.
Lisa, I think that's part of it, but we're also seeing, when you look at the overall economy, you are seeing signs of softness, right? We all know that the housing market has been kind of soft for a while. We all know that manufacturing is also soft right now. The only real thing that's really holding up the economy right now is the service sector, and so when we get the ISM number at 10 o'clock, that will be important to tell us what's going on in there. And so as rates come down, the point here is that should help to stimulate sort of things. I think there's some uncertainty whether it's towards the election, whether it's towards the economic outlook in general. But in general, what we are seeing is monetary policy is in a restrictive stance right now. Rates do need to come down to help stimulate spending.
Jay, is this normal to have this level of uncertainty? The knife's edge that John was talking about, this idea that things could tip the scales one way or another. Is this always how it feels at tipping points that seem to last forever with such model data?
Yeah, there's always uncertainty out there, right? And if you go back, you look at the pandemic, right? That was a very fast-moving sort of situation. You look at the financial crisis, lots of uncertainty around there. Absent a major shock, and the last major shock was the pandemic a few years ago, and the unwinding from that. Absent a major shock, I'm kind of hard-pressed to think of a time in the last few business cycles when things have felt a little bit uncertain as they do right now. So I do think it's not normal right now, given where we are. But we're,
So take a look at this real quick, and then I want to answer some questions. This is actually jobless claims, which, if you take a look at this chart, it's actually trending in a very good direction. So just keep this in mind. It actually looks like we are making some significant downward moves on jobless claims, which is very, very, very positive to see. So just want to bring this to people's attention quick, to see jobless claims kind of being pushed down right now, as we're seeing. That is definitely something that is going to be very good if it can be maintained. Who knows what's going to happen if we do have some kind of exogenous event in the near future here that's going to cause these numbers to tick back up. But it's kind of back into this soft landing conversation. And it seemed like a soft landing was so unrealistic and so impossible. But when you look at the facts, we simply just do not have anything falling off a cliff. And what instead we really have is just kind of a slow decrease of what's happening in the economy. And if we can now reverse the rate decision and kind of pick back up economic growth, now that inflation has gone away, I think that's going to be tremendously valuable. And if we take a look at what's happening with inflation, I mean, it's actually shocking. It really is. We're looking at inflation in the United States right now, according to Trueflation, at about 1.26% in the United States. So that is well below the Fed's target. So the Fed really has absolutely no reason to keep rates high. And I want to bring up a chart real quick of what 1.25% would look like on U.S. inflation year over year, because I think this is going to help people fully understand just how close we are really to things changing big time. Share this tab instead. All right. So this is U.S. inflation. And what you can see is the U.S. inflation numbers are already within this 100-year band. And this is just the band that I would say is like, hey, this is pretty average. The current Trueflation numbers I'm seeing are 1.26 for the Fed. I mean, for Trueflation, and the Federal Reserve numbers are on 2.9%. So take a look at this. Take a look at where we're going to be sitting if Trueflation is correct here, and we're actually at 1.26%. Oh boy, that wasn't supposed to happen. We would be all the way down here. And guys, as you can see, that we're starting to think about different issues here. We're getting close to deflation. We're almost below the 100-year average right now if we're going to take trueflation numbers into account. So that's a shocking situation to be in comparison to where we were just a couple months ago. And we are sitting at these high numbers over here. And very interestingly enough, it's not like trueflation is just always underreading numbers. They actually had inflation as high as 12% in the peak of the pandemic. So their chart looked more like this. And now it's coming crashing back down at a steeper rate. So it's going to be really interesting to see what the Federal Reserve does here, because based on everything I'm seeing, inflation is very close to this bottom bar here. And if we go into deflation, that's going to be, I mean, we're going to have to really turn back on money printing, because that's essentially, deflation is almost like a severe recession to depression. So, but what numbers do the Feds use? The Feds only use these numbers. So the Feds use these numbers, but the Fed isn't dumb. The Fed knows their numbers are lagging. So I think that's why the Federal Reserve is supposed to pivot in September, because they start to see that, hey, this is starting to really, the Fed needed to make sure they killed inflation. Like, they have certainly killed inflation now. Yeah, and that's the difference. Like, that's the difference between, Roger, something like your food bill and the Fed numbers. But Roger, I do want to say, and this is so important to understand, inflation can go away. Inflation can go away, and your food's not going to get cheaper. Why? Because even if back here we were at 9.6% and here we're at 2.9%, both of these numbers are positive inflation. So this is your stuff getting more expensive by 2.9% a year, and this is your stuff getting more expensive by 10.14% a year. But they're both inflation. Stuff doesn't start getting cheaper until you get below zero and you get to deflation. And what we can see is we're very rarely in deflation. So no one should be expecting their stuff to get cheaper with positive inflation. You should be expecting your stuff to get more expensive less fast. Now, if we do go into deflation, that's when you should start expecting your stuff to get cheaper. But what we can see is historically that doesn't often happen. And the question really is like, why do we target inflation? And I'll do this quick, because a lot of people think inflation is like evil. They do it to like manipulate people, which they do in a certain degree. But the reason why they target positive inflation, because I know this is confusing. It's like a lot of people say we need to go back to a gold-backed currency, right? I'm sure a lot of you have heard that, the gold-backed currency. So there can be no inflation. But inflation is on purpose. And the reason why you have inflation is because if everything you're going to buy in the economy is constantly getting more expensive, then you're incentivized to buy that thing now rather than waiting. So the purpose of inflation is really to keep the economy moving. The more and more people who are purchasing goods, the better it is for the overall economy. The more jobs that are created, the more people that are employed, the more businesses are creating money that can then pass that down to individuals who then can use that money to create their own businesses. So that's the thesis behind why you would want inflation in an economy. Now, obviously, when it gets out of hand, things can get difficult quickly, but the purpose is so that you're always incentivized to spend money and keep the economy moving. If you had a scenario in which the economy was deflationary and every single day everything you wanted to buy was getting cheaper, then you would actually be incentivized and not to spend any money. You'd be incentivized to sit on your hands and say, hey, I'm just going to wait until that thing ultimately gets to a point where I want to invest. So it is an interesting dichotomy there, and I just want to make sure people are fully aware of why inflation exists and why it's targeted at 2%, and also the difference between inflation and deflation. Yeah, Dave, I'm kind of in the middle because we already I don't think you really need a partially backed currency because you can just go buy gold. I think it comes down to understanding that there's things that are stores of value and there's things that are monetary units for spending. And the United States dollar is just a monetary unit for spending. And like, even though some people want to save in dollars, that's simply not the purpose of the dollar. Like, you shouldn't save in dollars. So I agree with you. A partially backed currency could solve some of those issues, but like, but then I would just get to the point, like, why wouldn't you just hold something that fully preserves your value, like gold or something like Bitcoin, maybe in the future, or XRP, right? These things that are actually not inflationary. So I don't know. There's completely deflationary assets, like XRP is a deflationary asset. And then there's things like dollar, which are inflationary assets. And I think you just take advantage of each specific vehicle for kind of what its purpose is. Crypto Clay, good to see you, brother. It's fun. It's like who gets here early and then who starts strolling in. Good to see you, brother. Hope you're doing well. Take a look at this real quick. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay, I need to do this. There we go.
It's the world's second
Oh, never mind.
largest.
We just got over to a commercial. We do not want to be watching commercials here. All right, let's get into this. I know a lot of people. Yeah, I know Clay's 3 hours behind. All right, let's get into this. I know a lot of people wanted to see talk about this. Can you turn into John E. Destin on Fox and when is John Deaton on? When is John Deaton on? Huge green candle. Let me know when John Deaton's on. I would love to cover that. I'm sure I could get it working. Yeah, it's maybe I need to find. Oh, now hold on. Let's see if I can get it real quick. Fox News. If anyone has some kind of streaming link. Oh, man. I don't know if I'm going to be. I have Fox News, but it's not the right Fox News channel. Yeah, I don't know if I can figure this out in the next couple minutes. I will do it.
Almost nobody.
A perfect day for a family.
All right, I might have it.
Doesn't care.
I might have it. I don't know if this is the right Fox News. We're on a commercial right now. I have it on the side. I'm going to try to get one other backup going here as well. I might have it. All right, let's hope. Let's hope. I would love to be able to get Deaton this call here. Fox News live stream. If anyone's yeah, we're just gonna have to find out in a second. Is John Deaton gonna pop up here? I got an ad going right now, trying to get some backup options moving. Would love to be able to show John Deaton up here, so want to figure that out. All right. We'll see. Doesn't look like I have a whole lot of options.
And whatever you don't spend carries over from each month. Other benefits on these plans include free rides.
All right, I got two different live streams going here. I'm clicking between. If one of them's right, we're just gonna have to take that. Hopefully, one of them is correct. If John Deaton is speaking and anyone's watching that locally, let me know, because that'll at least let me know that, like, hey, I don't have it. So appreciate that. All right, let's see what else we got. It's on commercial here. What's the commercial? I got a long Medicare commercial here. And I got a Humana commercial. Oh, yeah, they're the same. Humana. One's just ahead of the other. All right. I like my chances. No problem. Huge green candle. I think we might have it. I don't know. Getting I mean, to a certain degree, I might just need to get cable, which would stink. I don't want to get cable, but it's gonna make this stuff easier. Then it might be the best move. There's a standard crypto that helps local election. So are you just saying that Stand with Crypto is a good place to see who's going to be helping crypto? Or are you saying there's like some kind of live stream there we could do for John Deaton's thing? I'm just curious, because if there is some kind of way we could watch the John Deaton's thing there, I'll shoot over there. But is Bull Run at risk? Oh. Stand with Crypto webpage. All right, let me check that out. Oh, got you. Got you. Good morning, Tracy. Good to see you. All right, it looks like we got it. Oh yeah, I think we got it. Hold on, come on, baby. But
to run in Massachusetts, you know, why are you different? And you told me what? Well, I'm different because of my life experience. I come from extreme, severe poverty, growing up in one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in America, inside of a subsection of Detroit. I've served in the Marine Corps. I'm the living dream. When you look at me, Lawrence, I am the living, breathing embodiment of the American dream and everything that's possible in a great free country like ours. And I got in this race because I see that dream dying, because you have these elites like Elizabeth Warren. They sit back, hyper-partisan people, and they fuel division so that they can stay in power. And people are tired of it, and I think they're ready for change, and I'm going to bring that change to Massachusetts.
So they typically vote solid blue. You say that you're not a partisan, though. What do you mean by that?
Well, my loyalty is going to be to Massachusetts and America. I served in the Marine Corps. I took an oath. I know what that oath means, to serve your country. And so Elizabeth Warren is loyal to the Democratic Party. She's loyal to her agenda and her own political motivations and ambitions. I will have one test in the United States Senate. Is it good for Massachusetts and America? If it is, I'm all in. And if it's not, it's not. And that test and that loyalty is what's going to separate us.
So a lot of the things that Elizabeth Warren stands for, she got a lot of support within your state. And it's a lot of the things that the country at large has rejected when it comes to the border, Medicare for all of these programs. Are you going to run against those ideas?
Well, sure. I'm running on the American dream and what I've done in my life. Listen, 64%, this is what people don't know about Massachusetts, 64% are actually independents. They're called unenrolled voters, not Republican or Democrat. And there's a big difference now. You know, Massachusetts has become a border state. We have a right to shelter law. So we have to house the migrants. Doesn't require residency that was passed in the early 80s and feed them. It's bankrupting the state. It's over $1 billion has been of taxpayer money has went to house the migrants. It's bankrupting the state. And inflation, Massachusetts is now the second most expensive state to live in the country. Regular people are being priced out of the economy. Those two big issues didn't exist 6 years ago. And Elizabeth Warren is losing support every day because of her hyper-partisan politics and her loyalty to just a particular agenda.
Real quickly, do you think you're going to get any national support from the Senate Republican Committee or anything like that? Are they going to back your race, or do they think it's winnable?
Well, listen, I've already proved I won the primary by 65%.
Big showing.
People are coming together. And my biggest obstacle, Lawrence, isn't Elizabeth Warren. I've challenged her to 5 debates. I relish when I stand on that debate stage toe-to-toe with her. It's the perception of Massachusetts, oh, it's liberal and she can't be beaten. Once I break that perception, I have no doubt that people are going to come to me. And if you don't mind, John Deaton for Senate.com, I need their help. I can win this race. I wouldn't be in it if I couldn't.
John, it's a pleasure. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
We'll be following your race. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, so tomorrow we'll have breakfast with friends live at Sand Trap Tavern. That's in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. I'll see you there. Have a bite with me.
That was awesome. Good for Deaton, man. Killed it. I would expect nothing less from John Deaton to get up there and just absolutely kill it. So, excellent job. I don't think it was really not expected by anyone. Like I said, John Deaton continues to blow it out of the water time after time. And man, he looks comfortable, man. He does. He looks so comfortable. He looks like he's been doing this for a while. Congratulations to Deaton, man. To see him up there and really going mainstream on Fox News. Awesome. And Huge Green Candle, appreciate you for shouting that out. I want to do as much as I can on this channel to help promote John Deaton and just make sure the excitement stays on going into the election. I know a lot of people are kind of not. A lot of people are really focusing on the next thing now that the Ripple SEC case is perceived to be over. So I just want to make sure John Deaton stays in the spotlight. Roger says, Mickle in the morning, the best morning show on the internet. Appreciate that, Roger. See, we've made improvements. The first day I didn't have audio. The second day we had audio halfway through the show. And now we're pulling up John Deaton live halfway through the show without me even knowing it. So there we go. We'll take that as a win. Improvement. I am from Worcester, Mass. Love John Deaton, but Mass is full of extreme left-wingers. I don't give him much of a chance, but good luck. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be an uphill race. I will say, though, I think the younger generations are a lot more willing to embrace John Deaton. So we'll just have to wait and see. I'm ultimately hopeful that John Deaton can make a move in there. Thank you so much, Fire Dog. I appreciate that donation. I appreciate that donation a lot. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The morning coffee is awesome. Hold up, guys, 1 minute.
The weeds here. Michael McKee, Bloomberg Chief International Economics and Policy Correspondent, joins us now. And, you know, we're processing every piece of data that comes across EcoGo, obviously counting down to the big daddy tomorrow, the non-farm payrolls number. What was your take on the labor market with what we saw today?
Well, we're seeing what I talked about on Tuesday, that everything that we get feeds into the narrative that people will try to explain tomorrow at 8:35 when the numbers are out. It's all about that. And the ADP report, as you mentioned, doesn't always give us a clean read. The jobless claims numbers should tell us something about whether we're seeing layoffs, and we did not. If you take a look at what happened with initial jobless claims, we get 227,000. It was 232 the week before. This is the lowest number in the summer. And the white line there is the non-seasonally adjusted number, and you can see how it has fallen tremendously, and that suggests no layoffs. Now, those red boxes are around July every year. This is what happens. We get this dispersion between the two things. We get a jump in the jobless claims numbers for the seasonally adjusted, and non-seasonally adjusted go down because of layoffs. So we don't get a reading on this that really tells us a lot about where the economy is going, other than it's not in crisis. Then you take a look at the ADP numbers, and I did not scream.
Roger, thank you so much, brother.
They did get my attention. My eyelids rose, I guess. You look at the ECAN function on the Bloomberg, and you can see here what happened and what the Fed may be concerned about. Is the orange boxes are service industry jobs, and you can see the trend just going down, down, down. This is the weakest service industry numbers in about a year. So if service industries are not hiring anymore, then that could be a problem, because they are the biggest drivers of hiring. And that's what we saw. Now, ADP has been forecasting manufacturing job losses for some time that haven't occurred. And we did see that again today, them saying 8,000 jobs lost. But it's the professional and business services that will catch people's attention, because you do start laying off temporary employees if you think you're going into a recession. And that was down by 16,000 in their number. Information services down by 4,000. So some categories that could be problematic tomorrow to keep an eye on out of ADP, whether or not they prove accurate in the actual level of jobs created.
All right, Mike McKee, we will see you 24 hours from right now as we parse through what Matt Miller says is the Big Daddy jobs report. Let's bring in Lisa Shallot now. She is CIO over at Morgan Stanley Wealth Management. And Lisa, you take a look at the market reaction to this ADP print we got. Of course, initial jobless claims coming through as well. At this point, I don't know what would be good news for the market at 8:30 a.m. tomorrow. What would be the best possible print to actually maybe breathe some life back into the bull market?
So I do think that it's hard to know what is going to please this market. To your point, we have half the folks looking for a weak number that pushes Chair Powell to go 50, and the expectation is that that's the good news. Alternatively, you have half the folks saying, look, if we're really going to get a soft landing, that means a slow Fed and a stable labor market where consumption holds up. So look, we're in the soft landing camp. We're looking for a solid jobs creation number. Hopefully we come in right at the consensus, and that means a market that starts to broaden, right, and suggest a Fed that is going to be measured and go somewhat slowly. That may not be great, for some of the tech high flyers, which have started to swoon a little bit, but it should be, decent news for, the core of the market in financials, industrials, and
against it, because you're trying to find at the smallest needle in the largest haystack.
Oh, whoops.
And you have privacy rights, and you have all of these rules.
Soft landing.
All right, 1 minute.
Lisa, what about a slow and steady rate cutting cycle? At the end of the day, there are a lot of doubts that are hanging around that a 25 basis point cut, or even 2, or even 3 for that matter, in the next, let's say, 3 to 6 months would make much of a dent in then moving some of these consumption numbers forward, given the weaknesses you're already seeing in the labor market. How much do rates need to go down to really stimulate the economy?
Yeah, so this is, I think, one of the biggest controversies because, this has been an economy where higher rates have had an impact, or the rate sensitive parts of the economy have been much smaller than historically and very concentrated. And so the question of whether a slow and steady Fed or a soft landing Fed is going to help housing, whether it's going to help small businesses, whether it's going to help the low end consumer, whether it's going to help commercial real estate, I think the jury's out on that. And what that might mean is if we get a soft.
All right, let's switch it up and do these last couple minutes of the live stream, or last couple 15, 20 minutes, covering the chance of appeal in the Ripple SEC case. I understand this is something that's been a pretty hot topic, especially with some of the filings we saw last night. So we'll jump into this. I did see someone comment way earlier. I don't even know if I have the comment here. The comment was around whether or not the SEC could appeal XRP being a security. Let's see. Okay, here we go. This was the comment. Mickle said it a lot that XRP is not a security, can't be appealed. So let's hear it from him once more time. Yeah, so XRP as a security cannot be appealed. I found it. So XRP as a security cannot be appealed. And that's because the judge de facto said that XRP is not a security. The reason this is so significant is because a lot of the talk has been around whether or not or what even the SEC would be appealing. And it's my understanding that the SEC would essentially be appealing the idea of Ripple selling XRP through an exchange, that being a security. So I don't know. That to me just seems like a very weak case for the SEC. Like, why would they, it's just such a better case for the exchanges. If you're going to be suing based off transactions happening on an exchange, you want to go and sue the exchange, not necessarily Ripple, right? It's just a harder case to make for Ripple. What we're seeing right now, though, in terms of hold on, Peaceful Gamer said XRP as a security was never part of the SEC's lawsuit. Therefore, that's not a matter they are even allowed to appeal. Dicta, yeah, so it's kind of funny. The SEC did kind of say XRP was a security, but they knew that claim was bogus, so they kind of went half in, half out. And the court was like, hey, you need to pick whether or not you're saying this. And the SEC said, no, we're not saying this. So they kind of said it, but then they had to pull back on it because essentially they got caught. No appeal would be pretty much a bad thing in any retrospect. I don't think an appeal would be good. I don't think we want to see an appeal. But I guess, yeah, so I don't think an appeal would be a good thing at all. The question right now, though, at hand that everyone's kind of wondering is this motion that came in last night for Ripple. The motion that came in last night for Ripple was a motion that said, we're not going to pay you until we know whether or not you're going to appeal. Now, a lot of people were looking at this and saying, oh, the reason why Ripple wants to escrow funds is because they know there's going to be an appeal. Firedog said putting it in escrow is 100% normal. SEC didn't stop it because it would be stupid to. The judge would never side with that. Firedog, I tend to agree. Jeremy Hogan weighed in on this, and I would love to find Jeremy Hogan's response real quick here. But Jeremy Hogan actually weighed in on this, and he doesn't think it's much of anything. So he thinks the SEC is still trying to decide what to do, whether or not they're going to appeal. I would tend to agree with him. I don't think the SEC has made up their decision. Okay, so this is Jeremy Hogan's tweet specifically. I think Jeremy Hogan's tweet is actually good for the idea that the SEC won't appeal. So let's cover this real quickly here. And I would like to make this full screen here. Yep, there we go. All right, speculation time. Love some speculation time with Jeremy Hogan. Jeremy Hogan says speculation time. Most likely the SEC just hasn't made a decision whether or not it's going to appeal yet. Why? Filing a notice of appeal, see example below, only takes 15 minutes. You file a notice and then have 70 days to file the actual brief. Okay, interesting. Interesting. If the decision to appeal was already made, there's no reason to delay the filing, especially when you think there's bad case authority. Very interesting. Very interesting. So I didn't realize it only took 15 minutes to put the appeal in. So let's take a look at the appeal. Okay, so the notice of an appeal is just saying, I want to appeal. So realistically, the SEC hasn't made up their decision yet because clearly it's not some massive Yeah, they would have filed their decision already if they did make up their mind. Well, what do you mean they have already filed their motion? They would have already filed their motion already. Yeah, exactly. They haven't filed that motion, which to me makes it clear that they haven't made up their mind yet on appeal. I was worried that they were just going to be doing it at the end of the month because obviously I thought they had to file the full appeal, but apparently they just have to file their intent to appeal by October 7th, and the actual appeal doesn't come until 70 days after that. So that is good news and bad news. One, I believe it makes it more probable that the SEC, if doing this out of spite, could do it at the last minute and say, hey, last minute, we're appealing, and kind of screw Ripple over in that way. But I also do think that it increases the chances that they won't appeal because to a certain degree, they clearly aren't seeing this as some easy decision of, oh, okay, let's go appeal this. The Fozman says, I believe that it was Ripple telling the SEC to think about it. You really want to wait another year or two to get your money? I think that's a decent point, right? I don't know how bad the SEC needs the money. I don't know how bad the SEC wants the money. I would imagine the SEC would want the money pretty badly, but at the end of the day, they kind of have infinite funding through Congress. So I don't know. It would definitely look good for Gary Gensler to be able to get the money under his administration, right? I think that's probably a benefit here. Gary Gensler is probably coming to the end of his time with the SEC. I don't envision him being there much longer, especially in a change in administration. And it would be great for him to be able to get this money under its belt. It's a significant fine, and it would do a lot to kind of bolster the numbers for his time at the SEC. So that's an interesting thing there. And trust me, Gary Gensler is definitely someone who cares a lot about optics. I wouldn't be surprised if he was making some kind of push in order to make sure these funds ends up in the SEC's hands. And what Ripple's really doing is just making sure they can't do that. And still appeal the case. Guys, make sure if you're watching right now, you drop a like on the stream. Super, super helpful in getting more people in here. We have over 300 people watching. on YouTube, but only 120 likes. So make sure you take a quick second, exit out of the live chat, and do drop that like. It actually looks like we have 200 people watching on YouTube and then 650 over on X. Firedog said the only reason why they wouldn't have filed the initial start of the process by now is strictly because they really want to mess with Ripple. Or Firedog, because I think there needs to be a vote. So there needs to be a vote on whether or not an appeal goes through, according to some of the attorneys on X. So it could just be that they haven't voted yet. That's also important to consider. You would think they would be able to get a vote in by now, but with how slow government goes, I think it's also very probable that they might just be kind of sleeping on things. I want to see this real quick. Hold on. I want to see this real quick.
Advantage over the Trump campaign. Shanali?
And we're going to check in, Matt, now on AI stocks, because today, after the bell, we get Broadcom.
I just missed what I wanted to say. That's all right. Fred Rispoli said court ruling favorable for Ripple if it provides plenty of cover to institutions to use Ripple and XRP. Court ruling favorable for Ripple. It provides plenty of cover for institutions to use Ripple and XRP. Okay, interesting. So Roger's saying, according to Fred Rispoli, even if there is an appeal, Ripple has enough clarity for the intern. Yes, Firedog, vote internally at the SEC. My understanding is that the commissioners need to vote on whether or not there's going to be an appeal. This was something that was up for debate, but it does seem like that is something that is going to be needed. Brian, good to see you. He said, I think it's obvious they're going to win. So what's the reason why they keep dragging this on? Well, the question is are they doing it just to hurt Ripple? I think that's an interesting question. Like, is this all just to hurt Ripple? It's possible. Strong Mountain, good to see you, brother. I always love to see you down there. Always love to see you down there. They won't come out and say they won't appeal. Ripple and them could settle, though. They can certainly settle. They can certainly settle. I don't know if I can click on that X link. Actually, I can. I just have to be a little crafty with it. Oh, I can't click on that X link. If you post that X link from YouTube, then I can click on it. And if you tag me on X, then I can look at it, but I cannot look at that from an X live stream. So apologies for that, but if you post it anywhere else, I can take a look. Strongman, thank you, brother. If the SEC appeal and Trump loses, we may be in price trouble for a long time. Maybe, I don't know. XRP did hit $2 in the middle of the case, so very important to understand that XRP will kind of just do what XRP wants to do.
Say we believe that the long-term story is intact, but we note in the short-term volatility because of the news head.
Whoops. Oh, that's what I need to do. I need to do this.
A few reasons. But then you have this headline as well about NVIDIA and other investors looking to back Applied Digital. And I'm interested in this because it's not just NVIDIA, it's also reportedly related companies. So other private investors really getting in on the boom as they said they would, but now in conjunction with NVIDIA. How significant is something like this? We've seen more of it.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I would say is that you see a lot of traditional venture or private growth equity names muscled out of the market because the mega caps themselves have on their balance sheet R&D spend, which is significant, or they have venture arms that push people out of rounds. There's a lot of focus, though, right now, for example, on NVIDIA and the investments it's making in private.
Firedog says Ripple should just dangle a little $5 million in front of the shady Gary Gensler to give him something you're proud of to shut him up. Yeah, they should. They should just say, hey, Gary, what's it take to get you to put this thing behind you? I mean, unfortunately, I think there is a number there. Like, eventually Gary Gensler would say, all right, like, I'll take this. Kind of a crazy way the SEC just operates internally. All right, guys. So I've got to jump. Guys, thank you so much for coming. Really appreciate everyone coming here and adjusting to the new time. Obviously, as we kick things up and get things really up and running, we'll really start to have this all cleaned up, have more definite times. But I'm glad everyone likes the new time so far, likes kind of the market open, the ability to kind of get a head start on everything going on and break things down early. So really appreciate you guys for coming. I'll talk to you later. And for now, Mickle out.